Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to give you a preview of these LED landscape lights I just ordered. And this preview is not going to include any installation or a post-install view of it. This is just kind of my first impressions on this set of lights. Now, the reason I'm doing this versus waiting till the end is I may go through a couple of different brands before I do the final installation. So I just wanted to kind of go through at least this one and potentially some other ones. So if you're looking at possibly ordering a similar set to this video might be of value to. Now, this one is sold under the brand LEONLITE on Amazon, okay? Now, I found this exact setup under a lot of different brand names on Amazon, and I also find it under a brand name called Terrazza on Wayfair. I am very certain they're exactly the same hardware, but I can't be 100% sure. They look so identical. The write-up and the photography and all that stuff matches exactly across all the brands. So when you sample photography matches across all the brands, there's only two things that are usually going on. They're usually either there is one legit product and a bunch of Chinese knockoffs, or they're all Chinese products being sold under different brands. And the way you can typically tell that is with their pricing. So typically one of them will have some pretty high pricing, and then the rest of them will be unreasonably less than that. I've noticed that in a lot of gear that I buy for motorcycling and whatnot. I've noticed that in some tools, and I've noticed that with lighting quite a bit. But here's why I don't think that's the case here. The pricing seems to be the same across all of those brands. Very similar anyway. So I bought these on Amazon instead of Wayfair because I decided that I wanted to make sure these are the right lights before I commit to buying a lot of them, because I'm going to need a lot of these lights for the landscaping plan that we have. We have several steps and several wall caps, and I would say I'll probably need a few dozen of these boxes by the end of the day. And one thing that attracted me to it was the design. The other thing was obviously the price and the fact that they're LED and the fact that they're 12 volts. So these are, this setup is supposed to be a 12-inch run, but as you can tell, it only has 2, 4, 6, 8 lights in it. And from end to end, it is exactly 12 inches, but from end to end of the lights, it's about 8.5 inches. They're kind of bright, so they kind of blind you when you look into them directly. The temperature of the light is pretty accurate. I believe it when they say this is 2700. Here, let me turn. I just turned off some of the lights, and it'll be difficult for you to kind of judge temperature over this video because there's a lot going on, from my camera and then also the YouTube compression and whatnot. So I don't know if that will come across, but from my experience, I think the temperature, it does make sense that it's 2700 or so. It's definitely less than 3000 because I've seen 3000, and I really think it's more than 2500. So. And it advertises it to be a 2700K soft light, which that's my preference for most of my lighting, except for in the garage where I kind of like 5000 because it's more of a, you just want like a real bright setting in here. I do anyway. So that kind of comes down to your preference. You want to make sure you're getting the right temperature for your use. More than that, I wanted to kind of walk you through it. So it came in this box. And this is a 4-pack. So they're set up like this. 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth one. Each one of them comes with a set of screws. Waterproof wire nuts. Okay. And basically, supposedly the hardware that you're going to need to install them. Now, I don't usually use the hardware that comes with stuff from China because I find the hardware is not all that great. So I'm going to disconnect it from my power source here real quick. And by the way, I have it connected to a power source, and the power rating on these is dead on the money. It's exactly 3 watts. At 12 volts, I'm definitely getting 0.25 amps drawn by these things. I left these on overnight and wanted to see any sort of temperature difference from leaving them on for 12 hours, which is about how long I may leave them on at some point. And there was no real temperature difference. It got slightly warm to the touch, just slightly enough that it wasn't exactly as it was when I took it out of the box, but I would just say very slightly more. Okay, so let's do some measurements. We already said this is exactly 12 inches, and it does come in all kinds of different sizes, but I'll show you the 12-inch. And this is about 2 1/8 of an inch of this metal section here. And of course, this gets installed into your hardscape, however way you decide to do it. And then you'll punch the screws in through the holes that you see here. And it'll sit flush against your wall like that. However, one thing that wasn't obvious is where this little cable comes from. So the cable, for whatever reason, comes from the back here, which prevents you from flushing this surface against your wall, right? Now, I'm not really sure if that's going to be a problem or not. That's more for my installer to kind of figure out if that's an issue. And I think you can kind of squish this more or less like that to get it close to about 1/4 of an inch, maybe 3/16 of an inch if you try really hard. But you're not going to get 100 like fully flush against the wall this way. Okay, just know that. As far as quality, it actually seems really great. I can't immediately see any issues with quality. It's not loose in any way. The components seem to be kind of dead on. As I said, the electronics inside at least measure exactly that 3 watt of low voltage that it advertises. At 12 volts, you're getting exactly 0.25 amps drawn. It doesn't seem to heat up. It doesn't have any sort of external power brick or anything like that. Oh, let me just get this centered. So the other end of that is just a loose pair. Okay, so you're gonna use that to kind of put them in series, I guess, and go to the end of your wall. I don't know how clean that's going to be at the end of the day. I think that all depends on your installer. Let's turn it back on. And in case you're curious, I'm just using a DC power generator. And I'll leave a link to this in the description if you're interested. It's super handy to have one of those around. And with that, I actually did a review on that unit. I'll put a link to that review in the description as well. I really have enjoyed having that in the garage. It helps me with things like this, where I don't have to go out and buy a transformer and install this thing in the ground before I figure out what it's going to be like. I can get to test the lighting. So yeah, this is it so far, guys. For now, obviously, before installing it, and let me just blind you with the light. Before actually installing it, I can't see any negatives other than the fact that this wire sticks out from the surface that I would expect to be kind of flush. Now, that's really not a big problem because you can just pretend in your mind that, oh, let's measure this. Looks like 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, 3/4, just maybe a 1/16 more than a 3/4 of an inch. So you're going to add that little bit to it. So just imagine that your offset is probably going to end up being more like an inch off the wall. So if you're if you've got some sort of coping or an overhang or something like that that you're planning for, you want a good inch for this whole thing to fit in and the wires, okay? Because it won't fit in otherwise. That's something very important to know if you're planning your landscape lighting now. The alternative to this is to just go with some sort of LED strip underneath there. Now, I talked to a lot of folks, and you know, I'd love to hear your comments of what has worked for you. I talked to a lot of folks, and you know, invariably what I heard is that those LED strips, over a lot of time with the outdoor elements of, you know, moisture and, you know, kind of like temperature changes and water and whatnot, they won't really last the test of time. So I'm looking for something that will last me 20 years. That's about how long you can expect landscaping to stay relevant, I would think, in my mind anyway. I want something that'll be out there for 20 years. It's really impossible to know what this is going to do in 20 years. But what I do know is that those strip lights, they don't seem to last more than a couple of years with abuse because they're fragile. You kind of want some sort of hard housing in them. And this is a pretty hard housing. I mean, it's got some substantial weight to it. We can figure out exactly how much weight. Didn't really think of that, actually. So without the wires, obviously, it's 12.5 ounces. Or 354 grams. So hopefully that works for you. I don't think it's relevant how much it weighs really, but just so you kind of know that it's not a super light unit. This does feel like steel. And this is I believe this is probably anodized aluminum. And if it were up to me, instead of using this hardware, I would use some sort of hardware that won't rust over time. This is a very easy thing to kind of figure out on your own instead of just using whatever came in the box. I think it's a good idea to consider using your own hardware for installing something like that, especially if you're going for like a 20-year lifetime or something like this. Anyway, hopefully I've covered everything in this preview, okay? And it's not going to be a full review because a full review would include the install process and any sort of gotchas we hit along the way, and then also showing you the end result of landscape lighting and lighting it up. My backyard is currently in just post-demo space, so we're probably months away from being able to show you exactly what this will look like. But in a few months, hopefully I can do a follow-up, and if I do install these lights, I will tag this video and also post a new one to kind of do a full review. To see that, you'll need to subscribe and hit that notification bell. And I would love to hear your comments if you've got other brands, and if you feel like this LEONLITE brand is different than the Terrazza brand or any of the other brands that you see on Amazon and on Wayfair. The pricing seems to be the same. I don't usually like to post pricing on my videos because pricing changes quite a bit. But I will in this case tell you that the set of 4 was listed for $80 on Amazon. And I believe there was like a 15% like checkbox coupon. You know, you've seen those in Amazon. You hit the checkbox, you get 10 or 15% off. That's what it was. So I think it came out to like $70 or something like that. It's a pretty good deal for what you're getting, I think. Because I've been to the lighting store. Like if I go to Home Depot, there's nothing like this. And if I go to the local lighting warehouse that has like hundreds of thousands of lights in stock, I don't see anything similar to these, and this is kind of what I was looking for. I think you have to go to like a construction lighting warehouse to find good landscape lighting, and that may be on my list of things to do. But For something you can get on Amazon, do returns for free, gets here overnight. You can test it out for yourself, for your application. I think this is so far, it's been a win. And I will update you as soon as I have more updates. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Look forward to your comments. Hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you on the next video.